Hey guys, this is Sairaj Kamath from Metal Wani, and you're listening to our exclusive interview with Ashes of ARES singer and officer of the law, Matthew Barlow. How are you doing, Matthew?
Good, man. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Now, first off, we would just like to congratulate you on Ashes of ARES and your debut album, and it sounds very promising and it sounds awesome. Could you tell us a little bit about how it came to be?
Yeah, man. It actually just came to be. After I left Iced Earth, obviously I still wanted to continue with music. I was writing some stuff in my studio and writing lyrics, and as people that are musically inclined tend to do. You can't really just stop doing it. And just so happened, Freddie and I, Freddie Vidalis, who is the guitar player, bass player, music writer, all this other stuff for the band, he and I had actually, talked about doing some stuff together, outside of Iced Earth.
Okay.
And it just so happened, after he left the band, which was about, I don't know, a year and a half after I did, we basically just kind of sat down, had some ideas. He came over to my place at one time. We lived quite a distance away from one another, but he flew down, and we just sat down for a weekend and got some ideas, man. Just started bumping ideas off of each other, and we really dug what was going on, where we were at. So as soon as we started getting some songs written, pretty much in their entirety, I approached Van, who's a friend of mine for a long time. We've known each other for 16 years or something, man. It's been
through Nevermore,
really
right?
What's that?
So through Nevermore, is it?
Yeah. He and I toured back in '96, man. So I think that's when we first started touring together. We've done several. We did a couple European tours and a couple U.S. tours together because we were both Iced Earth and Nevermore on Century Media, so it just kind of worked out. We hit it off really well, man. So whenever he had left Nevermore, it almost seemed like the perfect storm. I mean, he left, and he's doing other stuff as well. But I just thought, I asked Freddie. I said, "Hey, man, would you have any problem with me talking to Van about kind of coming in with us on this and drumming for the band?" At that point, it wasn't actually a band; it was just me and Freddie, writing songs. But he was ecstatic about the idea. Yeah. Obviously, Van's history, musical history, and everything is pretty well written. So
That's true.
We just went with it, man, and just the three of us got together, started bouncing ideas, even more ideas off each other. We gave Van the stuff that we had written. Freddie had basic drum parts written down, but Van just took it and made just went all kinds of different directions with it. So it was cool, man. And everything about this is really the collaboration between the three of us, and we really are proud of that fact. We all have we influence one another, but also we're very much in control of what we're doing. Van's the drum guy, I'm the vocal melody guy and stuff like that, and Freddie's the guitar bass guy, and we give each other compliments or ideas, or say, hey, can we do this or change this around a little bit or whatever, and we're all open to that kind of stuff. And that's just that comment stuff. But if we feel very strongly about something, I'm not going to arm wrestle the guys about it, because that's their part. You know what I mean? And we want that collaboration to be really fresh and really make that a special part about this band.
Well, that sounds great. So it sounds like the chemistry between you guys was naturally there to begin with Ashes of ARES. It sounds like a very natural process. Is that true?
It is, man. I mean, these songs really, when Freddie and I started writing, and then it just seemed like it was like, one thing, we just kept really kind of just knocking them down, you know what I mean? He'd come up with ideas and, send something to me, and I'd go, okay, I got a really cool idea for this, and so that chemistry between Freddie and I, and then adding Van into that, and him just rolling with it, it was really cool, man. It was really refreshing as far as how we wrote, and just even though we're miles apart with technology the way it is, just being able to send files and stuff, and he sends me a file and I go, oh, I've got a killer idea for this, and I'd go out in my studio and, do something, and then I'd email him the file back, and he'd listen to it and go, "Hey, man, that sounds really cool." And, we just sort of added stuff onto one another's ideas, and it was just, it worked out really well, man.
Well, that's really something special, because long-distance communication, especially between bands whose members work so closely together, there are bound to be some problems. So it sounds like this sort of long-distance communication, these exchanging of files through the internet, worked really well for you during this process.
Yeah, man, it's cool. I mean, it's something obviously that you couldn't have done when I first got into music. You couldn't have done that. We were doing Tascam, tapes, stuff like that. That's how you get your ideas down. But then I'd have to, if living, like where Freddie lives in New Hampshire, I'd have to, mail it to him, And I'm sure that bands probably did that, to some extent, back in the day. But man, it's just so much nicer now. I can do a Dropbox, drop the file in the Dropbox, and it's there. He downloads it in like 15 minutes, and there it is. It's like the whole file. He can take my whole
so
file,
much more convenient.
on the Pro Tools file, and put it right into his, and it's boom. It's right there. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Now, my question is, I feel like Ashes of ARES was somewhat of a rebirth for you, especially after your short break from the music industry. Now, my question is, considering that Ares is the name for the Greek god of war, would you say that the name of your band and your life story has a correlation between them?
Well, yeah. I mean, the only thing I can say about that, man, is that the meaning of the name of the band is sort of a duality, the way I see it. Like I have explained it in a couple different forms that Ashes of Ares can mean either where Ares has finally caused us all to kill ourselves, and therefore the ashes are actually humanity, or to the point where humanity has risen above war, and we can finally move on beyond that, and Ares is just ash and a very distant memory to humanity. So in that there is sort of that duality between like my musical career path and what I've done as far as my law enforcement career. So there's kind of that that yin and yang kind of a thing,
Yeah, these again sound like very powerful concepts, especially for power metal. So with what you just explained to me about the concept of Ashes of Ares, it sounds like you had a lot of material to write about and a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, well, I mean, and a lot of the things came along. I mean, I had a couple of lyrical ideas already ready, stuff that I've been thinking about and have wanted to work into a song, and then some of the stuff was really inspired by what Freddie gave to me. So I just listening to the music and going, this is what's what I'm picturing in my mind. So that was really cool too. Just being able to take something, and then of course when he wrote music where I was like, man, I think I've got lyrics for this. I think I've got a lyric and a melody that's going to go really well with this song, and we ran with it that way. So it was, like I said, the collaboration there, man, is really cool, and that I know that's probably how it's going to continue writing with us, because I've got some conceptual ideas already, lyrically and all this other stuff that I've got that I know that I want to do, but Freddie just hasn't, he hasn't given me music for it yet. But I know that somehow I'm going to be able to work it in there, or give him the idea, and he's going to come up with something that he feels is appropriate to those lyrics. So, again, that's the way we want to work it, and I think that makes it fresh, man. That way, I've got one concept of the subject matter, and then Freddie's going to have a completely different idea of the subject matter, and somewhere in the middle we will meet, and I think that's what's going to keep it really fresh with us.
Well, this kind of process sounds really great. Now, speaking about the songs on the Ashes of Ares debut album, which of the new songs is your favorite? Which of the new songs do you feel works better in live on stage with the crowd? Are there any crowd favorites right now with any songs on the album?
Yeah, it's dude, it's really hard to for me, it's really hard for me to pick a favorite song. It's kind of like asking, do you have a favorite child? You know what I mean?
Oh.
So, I love the whole record. I love it as it is. All the songs have a place. You know what I mean? They have a meaning for me because all of them I put my hands on and my heart and mind went into help create them. So with that, it's hard for me to pick. But as far as the crowd favorites, man, I don't know. I mean, it again, because we are so varied. You sort of have to look at it like this, like there are some that are more thrashy tunes, like What I Am, Chalice of Man, things like that.
Yeah.
That the crowd really responds to, but in more of a hey, it's time to pit kind of thing right now. And then you've got other songs on Warrior's Wings or The Answer, where it's going to be a crowd thing where people were singing along with the songs. And that's awesome too, So it really, I really enjoy that we are a varied kind of a band, and everything that we have, it's all metal, but you can have different levels, ups and downs, peaks and valleys throughout the show, and that's what we strive to be. I mean, that's what I certainly strive to be, man, because I want to kind of encompass metal. I don't want to be put into a hole and go, okay, these guys are death metal, or these guys are power metal, or these guys are this metal. I want to, and I think we all have that kind of idea. We want to encompass the whole thing. I definitely see down the line, us doing even heavier songs, heavier, thrashier songs than What I Am and stuff. But then again, we may do something that's going to be completely, angelic and kind of all-inspiring, that kind of stuff. Just big, orchestrated stuff. I mean, it's the sky's the limit, man, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, this is so great as far as creating new music is concerned, because more often than not in this present age, it happens a lot. When a band creates new music and releases it to the public, it is immediately compartmentalized into a particular genre, like this is death metal, and this has a lot of speed in it, so this is thrash metal, and it sounds like what you said about encompassing everything metal. It really sounds like something special that any band would strive for.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's important, and I'm not to say there are guys that do death metal that are proud and wear that proudly, and that's cool, man. That's cool for them. But I just, I'm quite a bit older, and I've seen and heard a lot of different things, and I've been impacted by them, on different levels. But I mean, I just feel like because I'm a little bit maybe because I'm a little bit older, and I just want to, I don't know, spread my wings a little bit more, you know what I mean, and do all these different things. I mean, we definitely threw in some seriously heavy vocals in here, as well as very, what I consider very beautiful melodic vocals. And like I said, I just want to continue to keep exploring that space that we're given. You know what I mean? Nuclear Blast has really given us a lot of creative freedom. They really haven't said anything at all. I mean, as far as they just expect that we will produce them something that's going to be good, and we thank them for that. So hopefully they'll continue to have that kind of confidence in us, and we can continue to do what we want to do, and kind of just explore ourselves here.
Yeah, that sounds really great. As long as it's loud and it's heavy, it's metal. The sky's the limit.
That's right.
Now, after your almost year-long break from the stage, can you tell us about any changes or adaptations to touring life that you had to make with Ashes of ARES? Were there any difficulties in that department?
No, and that's kind of the cool thing, man, is that when, we had only done a couple live shows, and we did this tour and all this other stuff, and we had gotten together a few times at Van's place in New York, because that's about halfway between where Freddie and I live. I live in Delaware, and Freddie lives in New Hampshire, so we just met at Van's in New York. Got together, practiced with the band a couple times, and just started going out and jamming, and it just felt really, really natural, man. We got Dean playing bass and Gio playing guitar, second guitar for us, and it just really clicked, man. Really clicked really well, and I think it just like I said, I'd never all the tours that I had done with Van, I think we may have shared the stage a couple times doing the goofy stuff at the end of the tours, that kind of stuff. But we never really did anything serious, any kind of serious, music together, but it just went really well. Freddie and I were the only ones that had time on stage together, but everybody else it all just really came together, man, and I felt really comfortable. So, really worked out, man.
You have already stated with Ashes of Ares that you guys have every intention to keep on working on new music and touring. Now, while working on the Ashes of Ares album, did you feel in any way that you had to create your own identity, your own special identity with Ashes of Ares that may be kind of separate from your history with Iced Earth?
No, man, that didn't really cross my mind. The only thing that I was looking to do that might be different is just expand myself, personally. But I fully expected that because Freddie's writing the majority of the music, and then Van's writing the drums, and I'm doing my thing, and kind of creative control in the vocals, lyrical aspect of it. I thought that it was just going to be different anyway. It was going to turn out the way it turned out, and I felt really strongly about it, especially when Freddie and I first started, demoing up stuff and sending files back and forth. I was like, here's the thing: I can't change my voice. I'm not going to. People know me for this. They know me this way, so I'm not going to start, crooning or doing any jazz type stuff, or I'm going to do what I do and what I feel I do best, and I'll continue to expound upon that a little bit as things go. And I also try to take the music and accentuate the music with my vocals. I've always thought of vocals as being kind of the cherry on top. You know what I mean? The vocal shouldn't be the main focus, but it should accentuate the music and do, it starts from the ground up, drums, bass, guitar, vocals. That's kind of the way I see it, and just kind of building in that process. And you got the solid bottom in, and then the guitars in there, and then like I said, the vocals are just the kind of the cherry or the whipped cream on top of the sundae, So that's the way I've always looked at it, and that's the way I think it's turned out to be. And so no, I didn't make any conscious effort to go, well, I want to do something completely different, because I just don't think it's just not going to be me. I mean, people would see through it and go, well, he's really trying to be somebody else, or he's trying to, trying too hard to do something else. So I just, I think, where it comes to me doing stuff, it's going to be me, and folks that don't like what I do, then they're probably not going to like Ashes of Ares, but, hopefully they will.
That sounds great, because what's fascinating is there was one clue here with the song on the debut album titled One-Eyed King. It sounded somewhat of like a reactive song to the history of Iced Earth. Plus, if I'm not wrong, this was somewhat implied in a past interview. So it sounded like One-Eyed King had somewhat of a reaction to your history with Iced Earth. Can you tell us more about this? Whether it's there or not?
No, it's actually not, dude. It's not a reaction to that at all. And actually, oddly enough, that song was actually kind of written. The lyrics for that song were written at the end of my time with Iced Earth, and I was actually, it could have ended up being an Iced Earth song if I would have stayed with Iced Earth. Or at least that was what I was going to, a song that I may have contributed to. But it's really, no, One-Eyed King is more about society as a whole right now, and what we're dealing with, especially a lot of the things that we're dealing with in our country. But around the world, it's much the same. Whereas our supposed leaders typically are, they're maybe just a little bit less blind than we are to what's actually going on. There's a lot there are a lot of leaders in this world that think that they're leaders and that they're in charge, but they're really just being manipulated like the rest of us.
Yeah,
that's what the One-Eyed King is about. It's not. It's more about. It's based on an old proverb that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I don't know if you've ever heard that or not, but it essentially, to me, it means that we have these supposed leaders that we put our faith and our trust in to guide us, but at the end of the day, they're just they're nearly as powerless as we are when it comes to the way that things are run, because they're manipulated. We are manipulated, time and time again by money, by people that have the money and people that have the power. So that's kind of where that is. Now, it has absolutely nothing to do with my time in Ister. So.
Good. Yeah, I've got to tell you, that is a very identifiable topic, because with all the turmoil that is going on in the U.S. right now, with privacy being dead due to spying on the people, and also the recent war on Syria, I feel that One-Eyed King is going to be a very identifiable song about the leaders not being who they set themselves up to be, and the oppressive nature of these leaders on the people.
Right. Yep. That's it, man. And that's I guess I've never been much of a person to really do a lot of lyrics on social things, but as I get older, I feel like I'm getting a little more brazen, I guess, in my opinions of certain things, and I just it's sort of hard to deny the truth, and there's just a lot of BS that goes on in the world, and I see you see a lot of manipulation of people, of individuals and governments, and while we're all walking around with our iPhones, and I can be accused of it as well as anybody, well, we've got all these distractions in the world. There's just so much other stuff going on, and we're all just really being distracted by all of it.
Yeah. Yep. But don't you feel that these more brazen topics add to the impact of heavy metal music? Because heavy metal music has always been about dealing with topics that people normally don't deal with. Heavy metal music normally makes the most impact with us. Its hard-hitting nature and its lyrical topics really make the most impact. So, don't you feel that these brazen topics add to the impact of heavy metal music?
Sure, yeah, I do, man, and I've always felt that way, and I've like I said, I certainly know where back in the day, Iron Maiden, Metallica, all these bands that I grew up listening to were always touching on those topics. You know what I mean? As far as always question authority, and I'm a guy who has a certain amount of authority. Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with questioning authority. You know what I mean? And just getting down to the bottom of things. Because if you don't know, then you have to question. And there's nothing wrong with that. You'd be respectful about it, obviously, and things like that. But sure, man. If somebody's got a question of me as to why I'm doing something or what have you as a person in authority, then I'm obliged and I need to explain what's going on, but unfortunately there's a lot of things in this world that are much bigger than I am on the scope of where I am that are beyond a lot of our scope, and I just think that it's we should always question, well, what's going on with that, man? Why is this happening, or why is that happening? And it doesn't seem strange that it seems like more of a manipulation than anything. But I think metal music is very much that, and metal as well as punk. Punk is obviously there. Punk is more of the anarchy version of metal, but I think I've always thought of metal music as being more of the educated man's kind of punk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more technical. Looking at it from a okay, here's the thing. Here we question it. But let's get to the bottom of it. How can we get to the bottom of it, or how can we make people aware, or bring about an educational aspect to it? And that's always been a really cool thing. That's just kind of the way it is. Maybe Megadeth is a little bit more anarchy, but
more political. that is true. Megadeth usually have more political lyrics, especially Dave Mustaine himself. There's a lot more impact in that kind of music.
Yeah, well, Dave is very, very opinionated, so it's going to come out.
Yeah. Now, would you say that your time with law enforcement has given you more insight into the world and given you more inspiration to write about? Because from what I've heard so far, this sort of thing really gives a unique perspective, if I'm not wrong. So, can you answer that for me?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so, man. I mean, obviously, one of the songs written on Warriors Wings was written, for a colleague of mine who was killed in the line of duty. In that aspect, certainly, but also I think just in growing, getting older and things like that. Like I said, maybe I'm getting a little bit more opinionated in my old age. Maybe that's what happens, with age, but I certainly have certain things to say. I don't want to make an Ashes of Ares record that's going to be like, okay, it's all political opinion and this, that. I still want to be able to, I want to weave in and out of, reality. I might touch on it a little bit, but also I don't want to be completely in your face. Obviously, One-Eyed King, like you had some questions about it. I like to keep lyrical ideas and things like that a bit vague. I want people to always kind of wonder what that song is about. And then if you ask me, then I'll tell you. But I don't want you to have a preconceived notion about it. I want you to think about it. I want you to do so. Sometimes that's just the way it's going to be, man. I may do something completely fantastical like The Messenger, and then the next thing I'm going to go into What I Am, which is based on something as I kind of was inspired by a childhood event and things like that, and
yeah.
It's just something that struck me as wrong as a child, and then so I was inspired by that, and it's something that stuck with me for my whole life. So I figured I should address it maybe in a song and go lyrically with it. So I think it's always going to be it's going to come from all sides with me, man. I'm never going to really try to stay in one thing, but yeah, maybe something that happens on the job I might be inspired by lyrically and run with it, but. I think it's just getting more life experience, man. Is just going to continue to fuel the music, Yeah,
it always helps. It always makes it more real. So, with what you do, there are bound to be different aspects of your life which are very different from each other. Like, for example, on one hand you have heavy metal musician Matt Barlow. Next you have police officer Matt Barlow. And in another case, you have the family man, Matt Barlow. So how difficult would you say it is for you to coordinate with all these different aspects of your life?
Well, it's interesting, but I look at it as far as the music. I just designate a certain amount of time, and when we're starting the writing process, I might go out to my studio for a couple hours and spend a couple hours, not killing myself or whatever, but, as things are flowing, if things are flowing great, and then I'll come in, tell my wife, hey, I've got this idea, I just want to keep working on it. If that's cool, I'll knock this out, and then I'll come in and we'll hang out with the kids or whatever. And I obviously everything, family and music, have to kind of hinge around my work schedule because I got to work, and we gotta eat. You know what I mean? So, but outside of that, man, I've got a really excellent work schedule. I work 4 days on and 4 days off. So with that, it's very nice. But outside of that, if I worked 8 hours a day at a regular gig, then I'd probably come home at night and maybe spend a couple hours jamming. It really just is a matter of parceling out your time. Is pretty much it, man. And I don't know too many people that don't have a job and family, and then they've got something else that they're also passionate about. Most people are kind of like that. So I think you just make time. You make time for what you love, and obviously my career in law enforcement, my love of music and my love of my family are the big three. Those are the three things in my life that are most important. So I think you just make time for those, and if my wife, if I'm getting out of line, then my wife usually gets me back in line. So it's all good.
So it all boils down to time management essentially, because there are some cases of musicians quitting their bands because they have to devote more time to their families. So it could really be just a simple but effective measure as time management.
Yeah, and I'm it might not necessarily work out for everybody. I don't want to tell a guy that that's quitting his band because he needs to spend more time with his family and stuff. I mean, it happens, man. I mean, I definitely understand that. My wife is incredibly supportive. My kids are at a point where they're getting a little bit bigger, and maybe some of their stuff whatever it is, sports or band or whatever, may start kind of coming into that, and I may need to manage a little bit more of my time for my family. But it's all working out, man. Like I said, my wife is extremely supportive. I mean, we sit down together and we box up T-shirts and send them out to fans and things like that together. And she's a big part of this. I mean, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to Skype you right now because I have no idea how this stuff works. So she's a very big supporter and very important part in my life. So.
This may be somewhat premature, but do you have any plans of bringing Ashes of ARES to play in India sometime? Because I know for a fact that we have a lot of Indian metalheads who are starved for heavy metal music and who would just love the type of music that Ashes of ARES delivers.
Dude, I think that would be phenomenal. I mean, I would love it, but again, you know how the music industry works, man, and it takes somebody over there who's extremely well connected and has the ability to get us over there, because that's kind of the way it works with touring. You got to have somebody on that end setting stuff up, paying the bills, being able to guarantee us, plane tickets and all this other stuff, and getting us over there, and that's usually a pretty big deal. So I'm definitely not ruling it out at all. I would love to go there, man. That would be awesome. I mean, I've never been that far east, man, and it would be incredible. But all I can say right now is all we can do is hope and dream. And if that ever becomes a reality, man, I'll be extremely excited about it.
Yeah. So would you just like to give a shout out to Metal Wani and to all the Indian heavy metal fans who are listening to this right now? What would you like to say to them?
Well, I'd just like to say, thank you so much for supporting what we're doing. It's really an important thing for me personally. It's for kind of the first time that I've really had so much input on a band, and all these songs are much like our children, and we're really proud of this body of work, man. We're going to start working very soon. Start working on our next record, and we've already got some ideas, some concept ideas that we're going to start rolling with. So, hey, man, just enjoy the music. Listen to it however you can. Obviously, if you can purchase the record, legitimately, then that's obviously going to help our cause and allow us to keep writing records on Nuclear Blast. But ultimately, man, listen to the music and share it and enjoy it, and hopefully we'll be able to get over there and see folks live someday. That's obviously always the thing that we're striving for. So just everybody take care of yourselves and stay metal. That's it.
Now, thanks again so much for talking to us, Matt, and it's been a great pleasure to have you on Metal Wani right now.
Thanks, man. It's been really fun, man. Thank you for the great questions, and man, thank you again. I know you guys are not thanked enough. Being in the media, it's a very thankless job sometimes, and I know that you do it because you love doing it, and the same reason that I do music is because I love doing it. So, I want to thank you personally for what you do and helping us spread the word, man.
It is our pleasure, Matt. It really makes our day when we're able to connect to heavy metal musicians like these, and It may be a thankless job. It is very true in the case of media, especially in India. But at the end of the day, it's all about heavy metal, man, and that's what we love to do.
Right on, man. Right on, brother.